Hey guys, today I wanted to talk to you about marriage. We're going to cover a few different topics, but primarily what we're going to be focusing on is what you need to do before you ever consider getting married. In another video, I'll talk about what you should be looking for in another person when choosing who to marry, but right now we're going to be talking about what you need to be doing to prepare yourself for marriage. Now, desiring to get married is a very good thing. Being married is wonderful. You know, the Proverbs say that he who finds a wife finds a good thing, and a good wife is like a crown of her husband. So it is definitely a good thing to desire to want to be married. There is nothing wrong with that. But with all that being said, you also need to prepare yourself before you can ever even consider getting married. There are a lot of things that you can be doing right now to prepare yourself for marriage, and there are a lot of things you may be doing right now that are going to destroy your chances of ever finding a wife, or even if you do find a wife, things that you may be doing that will be ruining your marriage in the future. So with that said, the first thing that you need to consider before getting married is that marriage is a huge responsibility, especially for the man. As the man, you are tasked with taking care of one of God's daughters. Think about that responsibility. When you die, you will have to present your wife to God, and he will judge you based on how you treated your wife. This is huge. Think about it for yourself. If you had a daughter and someone wanted to marry your daughter, you would have very high standards for the type of person and the character of that person that you would require before they even had a chance to marry your daughter. Or at least you should if you're a good father. And it's the same thing for God. If God is going to trust you with one of his daughters, you need to be worthwhile. You need to be someone he can trust to take care of his very precious child. So that's the first thing that you need to consider. Are you ready to take on that responsibility? And even more so, as the father of a household, all of the responsibility is placed on you. You are tasked with taking care of the family. You're tasked with protecting the family. You are supposed to lay down your life for your wife. This is a huge thing that must be considered before entering into a marriage. Something you need to think about, something to prepare your heart for. You need to not only die for your wife in the sense of laying down your life if someone breaks into the house or something like that, but you need to be laying down your life for your wife every single day. Your life is no longer yours. You don't get to just do whatever you want. You need to consider your wife. You need to consider your children in everything that you do. You can't go and play golf every weekend. You can't play video games for 10 hours a day. Your life primarily is meant to take care of your family, and that is a huge responsibility that you need to think about. Are you ready to give up playing video games all day? Are you ready to give up many of your hobbies to take care of children? These are things you need to consider. The next thing is that this is a lifelong commitment. You should already know this, till death do us part. This is lifelong. Marriage is designed to be until death, until one of the spouses dies. This should last forever. Do not forget this. I know this is a touchy subject, but divorce is not permitted in the Bible under almost any circumstances. It is not supposed to be so. Divorce only exists because of the hardness of hearts of humans. It is not meant to be so. Divorce was never supposed to be part of God's design. So think about that. It is lifelong. The person that you are going to marry, it is a lifelong decision. And we'll talk about this more in the next one when I talk about who you should marry. But just know that whoever you marry, you are stuck with that person for the rest of your life. And that's a pretty heavy weight to bear sometimes if you pick the wrong person. So make sure you're picking right. Okay, so step one, the first thing that you need to do to prepare yourself for marriage is to seek first God's kingdom. An older man in my life gave me advice for how to prepare yourself for marriage. And he said, don't worry about finding the right person. Don't worry about any of that. First thing you need to do is start seeking first God's kingdom. Just start running in the direction that God sends you as fast as you can, fulfilling all of the duties of your ministry or whatever God has called you to do. Do that first, and then God will provide a wife for you. If you're meant to marry, he'll provide a wife for you. He said, run in that direction, run as fast as you can towards God, and see who can keep up. So first thing we need to do is seek first God's kingdom, and all things will be added to you. All the things that you need will be added to you. So if it is a part of God's plan for you to be married, well, then you better start walking in the path that God has for you. Otherwise, you may walk into the wrong woman that is not good for you, not the woman that God would want you to marry. You're gonna walk if you're supposed to be a minister and you're hanging out in bars all day, or you're going out clubbing and that's where you're trying to find girls. You are not gonna find the right one. Walk in the direction that God wants you to walk, and then you'll find the right person. The next thing, and this is advice that many people have probably heard, but before you even start thinking about who you're going to marry, you need to think about yourself first. I want you to write down attributes that are desirable, that you find attractive, that you think are good traits to have. And I want you to look at the list that you write down, and I want you to look at each one of those things on that list with intent. Think very closely about every single thing that you wrote, and I want you to think, do I have this attribute? Before you start thinking about marrying anyone else, you need to first think, am I someone who is worth marrying? Am I someone who people would actually want to marry? Am I someone who wastes all my time? Am I a liar? Am I untrustworthy? Am I capable of taking care of people? Can I even take care of myself? Why would I think I could take care of other people if I can't handle my own crap, right? You need to figure this out first. You need to make yourself someone who is worth marrying, someone who is trustworthy and is a rock, because ultimately, as a husband, you are supposed to be the rock of the family. You are supposed to be the one who is consistent, the one who is able to be counted on in times of trouble. Where the children may be emotionally unstable because they're children, or your wife may be going through a hard time because she's pregnant or something like that. You need to be the rock who's able to hold it together in hard times when finances are tight. You need to be someone who can be trusted in these hard times. So you need to first focus on this. Are you someone who is worth marrying? Are you someone who can take care of other people? And the first way is to figure out how to take care of yourself. And once you can do that, then you can start considering marriage. Now, this next piece of advice is advice that I give to all young men prior to ever even considering dating, ever considering even talking to women. And this piece of advice, this is one of the most important things. This is one of the most important things. You cannot watch pornography. You cannot spend any time indulging in that sin. I tell people that if you struggle with pornography, before you even think about getting married, you need to be off of pornography for at least a year. 6 months minimum. But if you want to be serious about this, at least a year. You cannot even think about getting married if you are watching pornography, because guess what? That's adultery. That is cheating on your wife. If you are watching pornography and you get married to someone, you are now cheating on your wife every single day. That is unacceptable. You cannot watch pornography and say that you love your wife at the same time. It's not possible, because you are cheating on her every single day. And if you struggle with a pornography addiction, you better get that in check before you get married. I know so many people who have gotten divorced over this problem of pornography, and I don't want to see any more of it. I am sick to death of seeing this happen. So I'm telling you right now, you need to quit watching porn right now. If you and you better be clean for a year before you even start dating. This is not an acceptable thing. A lot of guys think that, oh, I'll just get married, and once I'm married, I won't struggle with porn anymore, because then I'll have an outlet for my sexual desire. Well, guess what? Lots of guys think that, and they're all wrong. Most of them will fall back into pornography at some point in the marriage. Because guess what? Sometimes your wife is sick. Sometimes your wife just had a baby and you can't have sex for a certain amount of time. And what are you going to do during that time? Are you just going to go back to watching porn? That's usually what happens. So all I'm saying is you got to get this figured out. You have to get control over your lust. You have to get control over your sin before you can even think about getting married. Do not forget this, because if you do, your marriage is probably going to fail. Pornography is one of the top reasons for divorce right now. And it's getting worse. 90% of guys watch porn. I don't know how hard it is for the girls right now to find a guy who isn't watching porn. It's getting really, really hard out there. So you need to be someone who's worth marrying. And one of those ways that you can do that is to stop watching porn right now. So to reiterate everything I just told you, first thing you need to do is seek first God's kingdom. Second thing is understanding all of the responsibility that comes from marriage, understanding that you are taking care of one of God's daughters. So if you are not able to do that, if you're not ready to take on that responsibility, don't even think about getting married yet. Figure out your life, get settled as much as possible when it comes to a walk of faith as possible. Get settled, make some money, have some backup, be able to take care of a woman, be able to take care of children if that is part of your calling in marriage. And you need to figure out all of these things before getting married. And like I said, understand that divorce is not an option. This is supposed to be lifelong. If you want to glorify God in your marriage, divorce cannot be an option. Don't talk about it. Don't think about it. Always know that when you get married, when you say I do, it is until you die or she dies. There is no outlet. That is so important. I don't care how miserable you are in your marriage. I don't want to see any more divorce. The divorce rate for Christians is just as high as it is for non-Christians. And that is not something that is acceptable. What kind of message does that send to the world? Nothing good. So that's all I have for this first part. This is just focusing on you. I want you to think about what I said, get these things in line first, and then we can start talking about what to look for in a wife, where to find her, what characteristics, what kind of personality. All of these things are things to consider after you're ready for marriage. And it is a good thing to find a wife. I would like to reiterate that. I know marriage is hard sometimes and divorce is very common right now, but honestly, if you find a good wife and you treat her well, things are going to be great for you. Marriage is going to be wonderful. It is not always terrible. I know a lot of people have terrible marriages, but generally speaking, it's never just one of the spouse's fault. It's probably both in a lot of ways. And in my mind, there is no such thing as a no-fault divorce. These things don't exist. Both parties are usually responsible at least a little bit. And like I said, if you're the man in the relationship, everything that happens in your household is your fault, even when it's not your fault. It's always your fault. So take all these things into consideration. He who finds a wife finds a good thing. Don't forget it.